Hi guys, it's Mrs. Galvin. Sorry it's taking me so long to get this video up and running. I just trying to figure out the best way that I could do it, and it looks like YouTube's gonna be our option here. So I'm gonna be posting videos about 3 times a week of our novel read. So if you remember, I know it's been a couple weeks, but if you remember, we were reading The One and Only Ivan, and hopefully you kind of have a good idea of what was happening in the story before we left. If you remember, Ivan is the gorilla that lives in the Big Top Mall. A very lonely gorilla, right? Nobody was visiting the mall. Seems like people have lost interest in actually coming to see him. So and then he does have some friends in the mall, right? We talked about the dog. Hopefully you remember what his name was. And the elephant. Okay, that is his friend. And then there was a new character that was introduced to us named Ruby. And Ruby was the baby elephant that actually came to live in the mall. And they're hoping that Ruby will kind of save the mall, that it will attract more customers, and they'll pay to come and see Ruby and hopefully the other animals that are in the Big Top Mall. Right before we left, the last part of the story that we read was about Stella. And she did have what seemed to be a very bad infection, and she ended up passing away, which is a very sad part in the story. So now we're left with how Ivan feels about that, how Ruby, the smaller elephant, is going to cope with that, because it seemed like, if you guys remember, it seemed like Ruby and Stella were really fond of each other, and that Stella was kind of like pretending to be Ruby's mom, helping to protect her and keep her safe. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into where we left off with the story. Hopefully you didn't completely forget. So we're going to continue reading. And I'm going to do it just like I did it in class, where we do anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes. So just like we were in class, I have a timer set. And then there's also some other stories that I'm going to be reading too. I found some really good read-alouds here at my house, so I'm also going to be posting some of those videos as well. So definitely make sure that you're checking these out and that you're following along with the story. And then hopefully maybe we can get some questions or something going in the class portfolios, and then we can talk about what we're reading. Okay? So same thing as we did in class. I'll show you the pictures when there is a picture. So we're going to continue. This chapter is called The One and Only Ivan. When all the humans have left, I send Bob to check on Ruby. How is she? I ask when he returns. She was shivering, Bob says. I tried to cover her with hay, and I told her not to worry because you were going to save her. I glare at him. You told her that? You promised Stella. Bob lowers his head. I wanted to make the kid feel better. I shouldn't have made that promise, Bob. I point to Stella's domain, and for a moment it seems like I've forgotten how to breathe. I wanted to make Stella happy, I guess, but I can't save Ruby. I can't even save myself. I flop onto my back. The cement is always cold, but tonight it hurts. Bob leaps onto my belly. You are the one and only Ivan, he says, the mighty silverback. He licks my chin, and he's not even checking for leftovers. Say it, Bob commands. I look away. Say it, Ivan. I don't answer, so Bob licks my nose until I can't stand any longer. I am the one and only Ivan, I mutter. And don't you ever forget it, he says. When I gaze at the food court skylight, the moon so loved is shrouded in the clouds. Once upon a time. All night, Ruby moans and sniffles. I pace my domain. I don't want to fall asleep in case she needs something. Ivan, Bob says gently, get some sleep, please, for your sake and for mine. Bob can't sleep unless he is on my stomach. I hear a stirring. Ivan? Ruby calls. I rush to my window. Ruby, are you all right? I miss Aunt Stella, Ruby sobs, and I miss my mom and my sisters and my aunts and my cousins too. I know, I say, because it's all I can think of. Ruby sniffles. I can't sleep. Do you know any stories? The way Aunt Stella did? Not really, I admit. Stories were Stella's specialty. Tell me a story about when you were little, Ruby pleads. She puts her trunk between the bars. Please, Ivan. I scratch the back of my head. I don't remember things, Ruby, I admit. It's true, Bob says, trying to be helpful. Ivan has a terrible memory. He's the opposite of an elephant. Ruby lets out a long, shivery breath. Oh, well, that's okay. Good night, Ivan and Bob. I listen to Ruby's soft sobs for long, horrible minutes. Then I hear myself saying, once upon a time, there was a gorilla named Ivan. And slowly and deliberately, I try to remember. I was born in a place humans call Central Africa, in a dense rainforest so beautiful no crayons could ever do it justice. Gorillas don't name their newborns right away the way that humans do. We get to know our babies first. We wait to see hints of what might yet be. When they saw how much she loved to chase me around the forest, my parents decided on my twin sister's name, Tag. Oh, how I loved to play tag with my sister. She was nimble, but when I got too close, she would leap onto my unsuspecting father. Then I would join her, and we would bounce on that tolerant belly until he gave us the grunt, the rooting pig sound that meant enough. That game never got old, although my father might have disagreed. It didn't take long for my parents to find my name. All day long, every day I made pictures. I drew on rocks and bark and my poor mother's back. I used the sap from the leaves, I used the juice from the fruit, but mostly I used mud. And that is why they called me Mud. To a human, mud might not sound like much, but to me, it was everything. My family, which humans call a troop, was just like any other gorilla family. There were 10 of us, my father, the silverback, my mother, and 3 other adult females, a juvenile male called a blackback, and 2 other young gorillas. Tag and I were the babies of the group. We squabbled now and then as families will, but my father knew how to keep us in line with a simple scowl, and for the most part, we were happy to do what we were meant to do, to feed and forage and nap and play. My father was a master at leading us to the ripest fruit for our morning feast and the finest branches for our night nests. He was everything a silverback is meant to be, a guide, a teacher, a protector. And nobody could chest beat like my father. Gorilla babies and elephant babies and human babies are not so different, except that a gorilla gets to spend the day riding on his mother's back, like a cowboy on a horse. It's a pretty great system from the baby's point of view. Slowly, carefully, a young gorilla begins to venture farther and farther away from the safety of his mother's arms. He learns the skills he will need as an adult, how to make a nest of branches, weave them tightly or they will fall apart in the middle of the night, how to beat your chest, cup your palms to amplify the sound, how to go vining from tree to tree, don't let go, and how to be kind, be strong, and be loyal. Growing up gorilla is just like any other kind of growing up. You make mistakes, you play, you learn, you do it all over again. It was, for a while, the perfect life. One day, a still day when the hot air hummed, the humans came. After they captured my sister and me, they put us in a cramped, dark crate that smelled of fear. Somehow, I knew that in order to live, I had to let my old life die. But my sister could not let go of our home. It held her like a vine stretching across the miles, comforting and strangling. We were still in our crate when she looked at me without seeing, and I knew that the vine had finally snapped. It was Mac who pried open that crate, Mac who bought me, and Mac who raised me like a human baby. I wore diapers, I drank from a bottle, I slept in human beds, sat in human chairs, listened while human words swarmed around me like angry bees. Mac had a wife back then. Helen was quick to laugh, but quick to anger too, especially when I broke something, which was often. Here's what I broke while I lived with Mac and Helen. 1 crib, 46 glasses, 7 lamps, 1 couch, 3 shower curtains, 3 shower curtain rods, 1 blender, 1 TV, 1 radio, and 3 toes. My own toes. I broke the blender when I squeezed 3 tubes of toothpaste and a bottle of glue into it. I broke my toes attempting to swing from a lamp fixture on the ceiling. I broke 46 glasses. Well, it turns out there are many ways to break a glass. Every weekend, Mac and Helen took me in their convertible to a fast food restaurant where they ordered me French fries and a strawberry shake. Mac loved to see the expression on the cashier's face when he drove up and said, "Could I have some extra ketchup for my kid?" I went to baseball games, to the grocery store, to a movie theater, even to the circus. They didn't have a gorilla. I rode a little motorbike and blew out candles on a birthday cake. My life as a human was a glamorous one, although my parents, traditional sorts, would not have approved. Here's a picture of baby Mac, or baby Ivan, not Mac. This chapter is called Hunger. In my new life as a human, I was well tended. I ate lettuce leaves with Thousand Island dressing and caramel apples and popcorn with butter. My belly ballooned. But hunger, like food, comes in many shapes and colors. At night, lying alone in my poo pajamas, I felt hungry for the skilled touch of a grooming friend, for the cheerful grunts of a play fight, and for the easy safety of my nearby troop. Foraging through shadows. Remember what happened to Tag? I told myself, don't think about the jungle. Still, sometimes I lay awake wishing for the warmth of another just like me, asleep in a night nest of tender prayer plant leaves. I liked having sips of soda poured into my mouth like a bubbling waterfall, but every now and then I longed to search for a tender stalk of arrowroot to fill the tease of a mango just out of reach. One day, Helen came home with something large and flat wrapped in brown paper. Look what I bought today, she said excitedly as she tore off the paper. A painting to go over the living room couch. Fruit in a bowl, Max said with a shrug. Big deal. This is fine art. It's called a still life, Helen explained, and I think it's lovely. I dashed over to examine the painting, marveling at the colors and the shapes. See, said Max's wife. Ivan likes it. Ivan likes to roll up poop and throw it at squirrels, Max said. I couldn't take my eyes off of the apples and bananas and grapes in the picture. They look so real, so inviting, so edible. I reached out to touch a grape, and Helen slapped my hand. Bad boy, Ivan, don't touch. She jerked her thumb at Mac. Honey, go get a hammer and a nail, would you? While Mac and Helen were busy in the living room, I wandered into the kitchen. A cake covered in thick chocolate frosting sat on the counter. I like cake. Love it, in fact. But it wasn't eating I was thinking about. It was painting. The frosting peaked and dipped like waves on a tiny pond. It looked rich and gooey and dark and smooth. It looked like mud. I scooped up a handful of frosting. I scooped up another. I headed to the refrigerator door. It was perfect, an empty, white, waiting canvas. The frosting wasn't as easy to work with as jungle mud. It was stickier and, of course, thicker, but more tempting to eat. But I kept at it. I scraped off every last bit of that frosting. I may have eaten a little cake, too. I don't remember what I was trying to paint. A banana, most likely. I suppose I knew I was going to get in trouble, but at that moment, I just didn't care. I wanted to make something, anything, the way that I used to. I wanted to be an artist again. I soon learned that humans can screech even louder than monkeys, and after that, I was never allowed in the kitchen. Back in those days, the Big Top Mall was smaller. It had a pony ride, a wooden train that bustled around the parking lot, a few bedraggled parrots, and a surly spider monkey. But when Mac brought me, a baby gorilla dressed in a crisp tuxedo, to the mall, everything changed. People came from far and wide to have their pictures taken with me. They brought me blocks and a toy guitar. They held me in their laps. Once I even held a baby in mine. She was small and slippery, and bubbles flowed from her lips. She squeezed my finger, and her rear was puffy with padding. Her legs bowed like bent twigs. I made a face. She made a face. I grunted. She grunted. I was so afraid she would fall that I squeezed her tightly and her mother yanked her away. I wonder if my mother ever worried about dropping us. We always held on, but that's easier to do when your mother is furry. Human babies are an ugly lot, but their eyes are like our babies' eyes, too big for their faces and for the world. One day, after many weeks of loud talking, Helen packed a bag and slammed the front door and never came back. I don't know why. I never know the why of humans. That night, I slept with Mac in his bed. My old nests were woven of leaves and sticks and shaped like his bathtub, cool green cocoons. Mac's bed, like mine, was flat and hot and without sticks or stars. Still, he made a sleeping sound like the rumble of my father used to make when all was well, a sound from deep inside his belly. Mac grew sullen, I grew bigger. I became what I was meant to be, too large for chairs, too strong for hugs, too big for human life. I tried to stay calm and to move with dignity. I did my best to eat daintily, but human ways are hard to learn, especially when you're not a human. When I saw my new domain, I was thrilled, and who wouldn't have been? I had no furniture to break, no glasses to smash, no toilets to drop Mac's keys into. It even had a tire swing. I was relieved to have my own place. Somehow, I didn't realize I'd be here quite so long. Now I drink Pepsi, eat old apples, watch reruns on TV, but many days I forget what I'm supposed to be. Am I a human? Am I a gorilla? Humans have so many words, more than they truly need. Still, they have no name for what I am. Okay, I know it was gonna stop, so I'm gonna stop there. I will be posting another video, probably tomorrow since we're at Wednesday. So, definitely do something in the portfolio if you want to be like, hey, I enjoyed the reading, or maybe you like saw a word, or not saw it, heard a word and you're not really sure what it meant. You can definitely put that in the video, and I'll try to be a little bit better about like stopping and asking some questions, and then maybe we can get some answers. But I think this is a great way to just start off reading again. So definitely let me know what you think. Bye, guys.